Barak Yahawah, Bahashem Yahawashi, Bahashem Rawchaa Qadash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Worse and Worse. And this is taken directly from the book of 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter, roughly around the 14th verse. And this is pretty much just dealing with these, leaders in Israel, and just Israelites in general that have woken up to know that they're Israelites. And things are getting progressively worse and worse with some of these groups. As you know, just for example, the IUIC, now they're teaching that there's a such thing as hell. There's a third hell. Now there was a video that was being passed around where the General Nathaniel, Bishop Nathaniel, whatever he wants to call himself, or they want to call him, did a video, something about not wearing a, something like that. I can't really remember exactly how he worded it, but what it made me think of was that I'm not saying that they are saying this, but from the way it was worded, it's seeming like the next step in this so-called, that their teachings is they're going to be teaching that the nations can be saved. Now, I'm not saying that he actually said that, but it just something about the way he had said what he said, and you brothers out there that have sent the video around, what I'm talking about. It's almost seeming like that's going to be the next phase, that they're going to be teaching that all nations can be saved. Now, I'm not saying that's the truth. I'm not saying that's exactly what they said. He didn't actually say it that way, but the implication of the way it was said seemed like that's the next thing they're going to push. Now, I don't know if that's the case or not. Somebody from there can get on here and say different, say, no, we don't teach that, and I'll stand corrected. But nowadays, you can't put anything past these individuals, and, a lot of these guys, that have been put into these leadership positions or are in them leadership positions in Israel, are becoming fat-headed. You can't tell them nothing. You can't, break nothing down to them. You can't open their eyes to anything that's really going on, because they're, like the scriptures say, their conscience is seared with a hot iron. So I want to go through this chapter here. There's one main point that I want to get. So before we actually read through this, because it speaks about in the first verse, this know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. So this is a warning or forewarning from the Apostle Paul about the last days. Back then it started happening, but much more now in these times when we're in the very final days of the end. And he gives you a rundown of all of the things that these individuals would be doing, to let us know that, we're in the final hours, pretty much final minutes of this kingdom before Yahawashi comes back to establish his kingdom on the earth. Now, when we go to the 13th verse, it was actually 13, not 14. I'm going to read this verse. We're going to go to a particular word. And then after that, Lord's will, we're going to go back to the beginning of the chapter and, and go through some of those, some of the precepts, that are, or some of the wording that's being said in there to show you how it applies to, these individuals today. And this is why it speaks about those that are of the circumcision whose mouths must be stopped, because they're speaking things which they ought not. Now, some of them are sold out, and they're doing this because they took the bag. Some of them are doing it because they're being seduced by these demons, these spirits, to change up the doctrine, to bring out these, false teachings. And since they have no one there to check them on these things, they're continuing to wax worse and worse, as the scripture says here. Verse 13, 2 Timothy 3 and 13. But evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived, because the deceived and the deceiver are the Lord's. But these individuals, they're deceiving the flock, whether intentionally or unintentionally, but they're also being deceived themselves. Now, when we look up the phrase worse and worse, we have the word here, chiron, right? Chiron or chiron, however you pronounce it. And when we come down here, it just simply says worse, right? It says irregular comparative. I'm reading from Strong's definition, from an obsolete equivalent, keres, of uncertain derivation, more evil or aggravated, physically, mentally, or morally, sorer, worse. So they're progressively getting worse and worse. You know, in this case, we're dealing with mentally and or morally. All right. And more so mentally, which is spiritually, because they're becoming, they're buying into their own, you know, they're pretty much lovers of themselves, as it says further up, you know, in the chat or at the beginning of the chapter in 2 Timothy 3. Now, what I found interesting is that this same word in the Greek chiron or chiron, when you come down here to the places in the New Testament where this word appears, right, it gives you different examples of something that becomes worse. As in the case of Matthew 9:16, it says, "No man putteth a piece of new cloth unto an old garment, for that which is put to fill it up taketh from the garment, and the rent is made worse." You know, so in other words, here it is, you have this old garment, you know, it's one of your favorite garments, and you're trying to take pieces of new cloth and put it onto that old garment and sew it together. It's not going to hold up, because that material, you know, the new material is a lot sturdier than the old material. So it's going to make the rent or the rip in it worse. So that's what these guys are doing, trying to take new things and add it to the old, when the old is already perfect in the way it is. And, you know, not just Bishop Nathaniel or whatever he calls himself, and the other leaders, they've all been taught the right way at the One West School, except for, you know, little few little things here and there that had to be tweaked. But for the most part, the doctrine that they received from there was perfect. You know, from the name, you know, to Israel being the only nation that's going to be saved in the Lord, to, you know, there's no such thing as a place called hell where you burn forever and ever, and many other things. Because you even have some of those One West groups that have gone so that I'm pretty sure, I can't think of any right now, but that may even go so far as saying that the virgin birth is biblical, which it's not. You see? So it makes it worse. So the next scripture is Matthew 12:45. It says, "Then goeth he," meaning when an individual comes into the knowledge and there's a demon on him, and that demon is pulled off, then he goes back and grabs 7 other demons that are more powerful than him. "Then goeth he and taketh with himself 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter in and dwell there," meaning they dwell in this man's body. "And the last state of that man is worse than the first." You see? So that's why it says men and seducers shall wax worse and worse. So they're becoming progressively worse. And the more proud they become, the more them spirits and demons jump on them. You know, the more heady they become, the more, you know, you can't tell them anything. It's all about them. It's their way or the highway. Hey, man, you know, eventually they're gonna have to answer for that. It says, "Even so shall it be also unto this wicked generation." Now, the Matthew 27:64, "Command therefore that the sepulchre be made sure until the 3rd day." This is dealing with those wicked Pharisees and them, you know, when they found out that Yahawashi had been crucified, you know, they said, you know, make sure, you know, put a guard. They actually asked Herod first, I believe it was, or it was Pilate, Pontius Pilate, to put a guard, or some Roman guards, to watch over the sepulcher, lest the disciples come and steal the body away in the evening, which that's not what they were going to do, right? So it says, "Come, command therefore that the sepulchre be made sure unto the third day, lest his disciples come by night and steal him away, and say unto the people, He is risen from the dead. So the last error shall be worse than the first." So this is how these individuals are becoming worse, because they left that first estate, where they had the names of Yahawah and Yahawashi. They were teaching the correct doctrine, but then they veered off. You see, so they became worse and worse. Now the next one here is Mark 5:26. It says, "And had suffered many things of many physicians." This is dealing with this woman that had an infirmity, "and had spent all that she had, and was nothing better, but rather grew worse." You see, so the point is that these individuals, they were at one time of a sound mind, but eventually they started becoming worse and worse. Let's see what else we got. Okay, that one we read that already. Right, beautiful. This is beautiful right here. Yahawashi said in St. John 5:14, "Afterward Yahawashi findeth him in the temple, and saith unto him, Behold, thou art made whole. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come unto thee." You see? So this is the point. Let's see what this one says. 1 Timothy 5:8, "But if any provide not for his own, and specially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel." Right, meaning an infidel. And this is the one we just read, "But evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse." Let's see, Hebrews 10:29. Matter of fact, let's read 2 Peter 2:20. No, I know what I'm gonna do. We're gonna go to Hebrews 10, right? Read that and then come back to one in 2 Peter, because the one in 2 Peter is we'll put the cap on it, so to speak. Hebrews chapter 10, and let's see, where were we at? And 29. So I'm going to start up a little bit above that, because we want to get the whole meat off of this. So it says Yahawashi or judgment. Right. So in other words, you accept Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi, or you accept judgment. There's no other way around it. And these individuals, they're choosing to serve their own belly. It's about them. It's about their curriculum, the way they want things done. It's not about keeping the sacred way of the Lord Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi pure. It's about pushing their agenda forward. And that's a very dangerous, slippery slope, when you start doing that. Hebrews 10:26, "For if we sin willfully after that we have received the knowledge of the truth." Now, this doesn't mean that the individual goes and just commits a sin, just off the cuff. Even though we shouldn't be doing that, scriptures say, "Use not your liberty as a cloak of maliciousness." But this willful sin right here is speaking about not believing or accepting Yahawashi. That's this willful sin, not accepting Yahawashi. That's why it says Yahawashi or judgment. So either you choose Yahawashi, which you can't choose, and he opens himself up to you through the spirit of the Most High Yahawah. But either you do what Yahawashi said, or you deal with judgment. "For if we sin willfully after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no more sacrifice for sins," because Yahawashi already became that ultimate sacrifice, and he's not going to keep coming down here over and over and over and over again to suffer the same bullshit that he did 2,000 years ago. It ain't going to happen. He did that once, and that's all he's going to do it. So either you accept that or you don't. And if you're a part of the elect, you will accept it. And if you're not a part of the elect, you will not accept it. But it says, "But if certain fearful looking for of judgment and fiery indignation, which shall devour the adversaries." Right, that's why he says, "Those my enemies, which would not that I should reign over them, bring hither and slay them before me." It says, "He that despised Moses' law died without mercy unto 2 or 3 witnesses." Here's the point, verse 29, "Of how much sorer punishment suppose ye, or how much worse judgment or punishment suppose ye shall he be thought worthy who have trodden underfoot the Son of the Most High, which proves to you that the sinning willfully part is speaking about not accepting Yahawashi, and have counted the blood of the covenant wherewith he was sanctified an unholy thing, and has done despite unto the Spirit of grace. You see, so that's is speaking about a worse judgment that will come upon that individual. For we know him that have said, vengeance belongeth unto me, I will recompense, saith the Lord Yahawah, and again the Lord shall judge his people. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living power, right? And these individuals are walking a very slippery slope when they do that. So 2 Peter 2:20, it says, for if after they have escaped the pollution of the world, through the knowledge of the Lord and Savior Yahawashi, right? Escaping the pollution of this world, having that one demon pulled off of you. No, you're in the knowledge, you're in the kingdom of heaven. You have tasted this heavenly gift. It says they are again entangled there, meaning entangled back into the world. And then henceforth, that one demon you had on you comes back with 7 more powerful demons, right? It says, and overcome, because they're going to overcome you, because eventually what's going to happen is this knowledge is going to leak right out. The latter end is worse with them than the beginning, see? So it's worse than the beginning. So these individuals that are pushing their own agenda, they're waxing worse and worse and heading down they have a one-way ticket, or a one-way down to the path of destruction. It says, for it had been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness than after they have known it to turn from the holy commandment delivered unto them. And this is what's happening. That's how these individuals are waxing worse and worse. It also says, that the time will come where they will not endure sound doctrine. See? So you walk in a very slippery slope when you do that. But it has happened unto them according to the true proverb, the dog is turned to his own vomit again, and the sow that was washed to her wallowing in the mire. Right, so they were cleaned, and they returned back to that filth that they were in before. So going back to 2 Timothy 3, we're just going to go up to the top. You got to be worried of these individuals. It's all about them. They exalted themselves. They're just making merchandise of the Lord's word, man. It's just unbelievable to see these individuals that are so-called well-studied, that so-called, can do research. They'll have debates and all this stuff, but yet they missed the part where Yahawashi was whooping them individuals' asses for making the Lord's house a den of thieves and of merchandise. It's crazy, because here it is, they can go into intricate breakdowns of certain things, but yet they can't discern that, I shouldn't be selling this stuff, as a part. If you got your little hustle on the side, do your little hustle on the side. Don't try to bring that thing into the truth, and they can't see that. So it's amazing. But anyways, 2 Timothy 3, matter of fact, let me read a couple of these precepts on the comment board that brothers are putting up. Beautiful. Matthew 7:21. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Right. So the ones that are doing the will of the Father, not their own will, not serving their own belly, these are the ones that are going to enter into the kingdom. These are the faithful servants of Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name have done many wonderful works? And what did Yahawashi say? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. Why? Because you're pushing your own agenda. You're not pushing the agenda of Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi. You're serving your own belly. It's about you. It's your doctrine, your thing, not the thing of Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi. So Proverbs 26:11, as a dog returneth to his vomit, so a fool returneth to his folly. Right. And that is the scripture that the Apostle Peter was quoting from. All right. Zephaniah 1:8, and it shall come to pass in the day of the Lord's sacrifice that I will punish the princes and the king's children and all such as are clothed with strange apparel. Right. And that is a strange apparel. When you are teaching a different doctrine, that is strange apparel, strange clothing. Go back to the Garden of Eden. You know, when Adam and Eve, they put on those aprons. What do you think those aprons were about? No, those aprons were the identity of these nations and the new doctrine that they were being taught that was contrary to what the Lord taught them. That's the same thing with these individuals today. This is why in the book of Revelation it says, you know, blessed is he that keepeth his garment. You see? The brother put Titus 1 and 10, but we're going to go to the 9th verse before we read this. Let's go to Titus 1. Let's start at the 9th verse. Start at the 9th verse. It says, holding fast the faithful word that he has been taught. And, you know, there's so many countless times where the scriptures speak about continuing in the thing which you have learned. Not to turn away from that, you know, staying grounded in what you learned, you know, holding fast the faithful word as he has been taught, because we were all taught this. No man can say that, then jump up and say that they learned this on their own. All of you individuals out there, including all of the men that go back to One West, we were all taught of another man. You know, the knowledge that we know today. It says that he may be able by sound doctrine both and to convince the gainsayers, right? And that by sound doctrine, meaning doctrine that is not polluted, doctrine that is not unhealthy. And a lot of these individuals are teaching unhealthy doctrines. You see? It says, for there are many unruly and vain talkers and deceivers, especially they of the circumcision, the ones that know that they're Israelites. Let's look up a couple of these words. Let's look up the word unruly. Because to be unruly means you cannot follow instructions. The word unruly is anupotaktos. Anupotaktos. Sounds like a compound word. Not made subject. Unsubjected, meaning you don't follow instructions. That cannot be subjected to control. Disobedient, unruly, refractory. So you're not walking that right path. You can be controlled by the spirit of Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi. You are very unruly. Now, when we go to the book of Psalms, I'm not sure exactly where it is, but let's see. Let's see if it'll come up this way. It's in the book of Psalms, I know that. Right. Barak Psalms 32 and 9. Be ye not as the horse or as the mule, which have no understanding, whose mouth must be held in with bit and bridle, lest they come near unto thee. So in other words, don't be like that. Be disciplined. Be the individual that can be subjected to the obedience of Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi, not led away by every wind of doctrine. Because that's one thing that especially in these times that we're living in, that we're in the last days. There's going to be seducing spirits. There's going to be things that's going to come into your mind and it's going to sound convincing, but you have to be Berean minded enough to be able to go back and say, you know what? No, this is some BS. This is not scriptural, you know? Hebrews 13 and 9, be not carried about with divers and strange doctrines, because that's what happens. Them doctrines come in, they swipe, they sweep individuals out. We've seen it happen many, many times. You have an individual that have this epiphany, which is a demonic epiphany, and then all of a sudden they start teaching it, you know, and then they'll have other individuals that in their simplicity will follow them, and then before you know it, they're out there, you know, somewhere in the world, back in the world. So going back, Psalms 32 and 9, be ye not as a horse or as a mule, which have no understanding, whose mouth must be held in with bit and bridle, lest they come near unto thee. Yeah, because judgment is coming. So that word there, unruly, means not to be subject. In other words, to be insubordinate, right? Unruly and vain talkers. What does the word vain talkers mean? Let's see what that says. Vain talkers, you have the word matayologos, an idle talker, one who utters empty, senseless things, right? And that's what they are, empty, senseless things. When you're talking about hell being a place you burn forever, those are empty, senseless things. When you talk about the virgin birth, empty, senseless things, all right? Because all of these things are centered around what? Mythology, fables. And those fables of that mythology was something that was cunningly crafted together in order to, gain the upper hand over somebody, whether it was for their wealth, for their lands, or for whatever the case may be, for their deception, for whatever reason. The brother put in insubordination, refusal to obey orders. Correct. This is beautiful right here too. The brother Titus 2:6. Young men likewise exhort to be sober-minded. Right. When you're sober-minded, meaning you're clear-minded, you're clear of thought. You're not. You're of a sound mind. You're not unhealthy mentally. It says, in all things showing thyself a pattern of good works. So a pattern of good works is not just one thing you do. It's something that you do repeatedly over and over again that shows, okay, well, this man has a pattern of good works, or this individual has a pattern of bad works. Back in the days, the elder pastor said that, you watch a guy according to his patterns, right? It says, in doctrine showing uncorruptness, right? Because there is a right way and a wrong way to teach the truth. And I ain't trying to sing no song, There's a right way and a wrong way to teach it. So if you're going to show good works, a pattern of good works, you have to keep the doctrine pure. It says gravity, sincerity. And that's another thing too. Individuals are not sincere because it's all about them. Sound speech that cannot be condemned. Right. That's why it says, in 2 Corinthians, the 4th chapter, that the Most High may be true and every man a liar, that thou mightest be justified in thy sayings and overcome when thou art judged. Why? Because we're standing upon the principles of the doctrine of Yahawah B'Shem Yahawashi, that he that is of the contrary part, meaning that's against his knowledge, may be ashamed, having no evil thing to say of you, right? Because they cannot gainsay it. Did not Yahawashi say, I will give you a mouth with wisdom, that none of your adversaries shall be able to gainsay nor resist? Proverbs 15:32. He that refuses instruction, beautiful, despises his own soul, because this knowledge is what? The thing that's going to lead us to the finish line to receive salvation. But he that heareth reproof getteth understanding. Right. So a part of this knowledge is to be rebuked, to be reproved, to be instructed. In order to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower. And in order to be a good follower, you should be an individual that does their investigation into this truth, to this knowledge, so that you know that you're walking on the right path, that you're not just saying stuff because you heard somebody else say it. Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he shall not depart from it. Correct. 1 Timothy 1:5, now the end of the commandment is charity out of a pure heart, and of a good conscience, and of faith and faith, right? Because the pure heart means what? 100% truth, no lies of the truth, from which some, having swerved, have turned aside unto vain jangling, right? And that's what we're hearing right now, the vain jangling, of these different doctrines and philosophies that are coming out, that the name of the Lord is not important, that hell is a place, place where you go burn forever, and other many different demonic teachings that are going on out there. It says, desiring to be teachers of the law, understanding neither what they say nor whereof they affirm, right? Because when you scrutinize what they're saying, It doesn't make sense. Another thing is what? The new moon is the full moon. That's retarded. The new moon is the beginning of the month. The full moon, which is the middle of the month, is the sign of feast. So when one of the main feasts that falls on the new moon is the Passover. The Passover falls on the 14th eve, the 14th day at evening, which is the beginning of the 15th day, which is the middle of the month. It's not the beginning of the month. It's the middle of the month. So just on that, if you just rationalize that the new moon is the beginning of the month and the full moon is the middle of the month, you automatically will say, you know what, this is a bugged out doctrine. I can't ride with that because, doesn't make sense. Those two phases of the moon are 2 weeks apart from each other. So how can it be the same thing? All right. It says, Proverbs 29:1, good one. He that being often reproved hardeneth his neck shall suddenly be destroyed, and that without remedy. James 1:27, pure religion, which is pure belief or pure worship, and undefiled for the Most High and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and the widows in their affliction, which we do through this knowledge, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. All right. So let's go back to this. So as an idle talker, one who utters empty, senseless things. So let's go back. So now we had unruly and vain talkers, which you've read those two. And deceivers. This word deceivers is a little different than the planao. Planao is usually deceiver, but this one is frenapates, a mind deceiver, right? And you have individuals out there that are very slick in their talk. You have these oil can Harry prophets out here that are very slick in the way that they speak and they say things to where they can have you convinced of anything. You got to watch out for those country slicker Joes. Inside joke. But you do have those that play mind games. And if your mind is set is, I'm going to believe this man, whatever he say, and I'm not going to question anything, then you lost already. You already lost. You can't just take anybody's word for scripture say, cursed be the man that trusteth in man. Yeah, you could look at a man as being a man of the Lord. You could look at a man and give him double honors, but you also have to go behind and check to make sure that what this man is saying is true so that you don't be deceived. But you have those out there that just follow blindly in their simplicity. So these individuals are mind deceivers, which this is the word deceiver. Fernapates, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So that goes into the word deceivers. It says, especially they of the circumcision, the ones that know that they're Israelites. It says, whose mouths must be stopped. They have to be stopped because now these individuals that were following, let's say the group like IUIC, they were following them from the beginning. They were getting the name at the beginning. They were getting breakdowns at the beginning. They were never taught that hell was a place you go burn forever. But now they go and teach them that hell is a place where you burn forever. These individuals not, being the sharpest knives in the drawer, now will just accept anything you say. So what happens? They become subverted. They become thrown over. You pretty much subverted their faith because they never believed in that from the beginning, because that was something that was never taught. But now it's something that's been taught. And there's another one that says, this is just the one, subvert whole houses. And that word for subvert is anatrepo. To overthrow, overturn, destroy, to subvert, right? And then there was another one, I think it was Philetus and Hymenaeus. It says that they say that the resurrection was overpassed, and he says overthrow. So to subvert means to overthrow, So here it is, you're subverting whole houses. people that believed in the doctrine at one time, believed in the name of Yahawashi, you know, believed in the name of the Most High Yahawah, you know, believed that there was no such thing as hell, you know, believed that the new moon, you know, was the beginning of the month. Now you got their mind all messed up. But that's their fault. It's a fault on both of the parties, because the individual that's leading them is at fault, and he's going to be dealt with by the Lord. And the individuals that's being led are going to all fall in the same ditch. Now the leader is going to get beaten with more stripes, and the followers are going to get beaten with less stripes, because the leader should know better. You should know better. But this is what happens, you know, when you become proud and heady. You open up yourself to a world of these different spirits out here. You know, it's all about you trying to find out a new way you can outdo yourself, so that you can look, you know, you can look grandiose in front of your congregation. We don't give a fuck how people view us. You know, we're happy to be viewed the way that we are. We're glad that people call us the worst camp out there. We're glad when people say, you know, all different type of malicious, wicked, evil things about us. We're happy about that. You know why? Because we know that by them doing that, that means that we're in a good position. You know, there's a very good possibility, a very good chance that we might just be the men of Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi for being in that spot. Because the scriptures speak about suffering for righteousness' sake. It speaks about suffering for the name of Yahawah and Yahawashi. So it's a beautiful thing. Rather be that way than not. Yeah, I mean, they say the cover of Essence, but, you know, they're saying that, you know, some brothers are saying that might just be, maybe something fake that they put together just to get a reaction from the people so that they can talk about it. You know, so whether either or. But one thing is for sure, that pose that he had with his hand on his chin, it slightly showed the mano cornuta. So, hey, we're gonna see. We're gonna see. All right. So now let's go from there. Let's go back to 2 Timothy 3. Let's go to the second verse now. It says, "For men shall be lovers of their own selves," and we see that plain as day. It's not about the love of Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi, suffering for Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi, defending the gospel of Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi. It's about defending that person's honor and that person's, you know, how people view them. And fuck all of that, man. The scriptures already tell us, we, you know, if they you know, listen to the master, if they didn't listen to the master, they wasn't going to listen to us. It says covetous, boasters, proud, and we see that. Man, pride, the pride is through the roof. Blasphemers, yeah, because to teach that hell is a place you go and burn forever, that is blasphemy, along with many other things. Disobedient to parents, yeah, because some of these individuals were brought up by men like Elder Pastor and others, and they are disobedient. It says unthankful, unholy, yeah. But they got that look, you know, supposing that gain is godliness, they having a godly, but they're not really godly. When you sit down with them, this is why the scriptures say, try the spirit whether they are of the Most High. For many, you know, false prophets are going out into the world, and the false prophet is not gonna, you know, come out ragged and fancy breakdowns, and he's gonna appeal to everybody. It says, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers. And it's funny because they accuse us of all kind of stuff falsely, right? But then it comes out that the individuals that are accusing us of the things that, you know, of things that we do, which we don't, they end up being the ones that end up doing those things and get caught for it. You know what that's called? That's called payback. That's called you reap what you sow. That's called the chickens coming home to roost. Bro Polite and others out there that have brought out false charges and false bullshit against us. It says incontinent. Now, what does it mean to be incontinent? You know, well, the word incontinent, I don't know what it's going to say in the Greek, but the word incontinent means not able to continue. Like if you have a woman, like the Apostle Paul spoke about the women when they were young women and they were widows, not to say that they're going to devote their life to Yahweh, to Yahawashi, because they still had that itch that needed to be scratched. So it says once that itch that needs to be scratched, happens, and they go and get with a man, they were not able to continue. They were incontinent. So the word here is akrates, which means without self-control, intemperate, right? No discipline. See, not able to contain themselves. So these individuals are not able to contain themselves. Why? Because they were given this freedom that they didn't know what to do with. Not every man out there that is a leader has the ability to govern themselves. They need other heads above them to kind of keep them level-headed. Otherwise, that fat head will increase, and their roof will come off the goddamn house. Their head is so fat. You got to tie them down with boat anchors. You had to tie them down with what are those carriers? USS carriers. The plane carriers or whatever those are called. With the anchors from that, their head is so fat that they don't go floating up into the sky. So it says, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good. And how do you know that someone is a despiser of them that are good? Because the scriptures say that they hate him that rebuketh in the gate. So when you're rebuking in the gate and you're correcting somebody out of love to pull their fat out of the fire, we're looked at as being hateful. This is why we're called the worst group out there. Why? Because we actually care. We actually, are trying to give you, the keys, so that you can understand what the scriptures are saying when it comes down to the MOTB being a micro hip and other things, but you don't want that. You look at it as we are just hating on you. We just don't like your shine. No, we see you're heading down a one-way street to destruction, and we're trying to tell your dumbass to turn around, but you're too fat to see it. But the Lord's going to get you unless you repent. And this goes to anybody out there that has that mindset. It says traitors, heady. We see that, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of the Most High. Why? Because it's not about the Lord Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi. It's about them. It's their gospel. Having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof, because they deny the power of Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi because it's about them. That's why it says, cursed be the man that trusted in man. From such turn away. So we get instructions on what to do with these individuals that are turning from the truth. Get the hell away from them. Why? Because that stuff is contagious. It's contagious. And them demons can hop on individuals. That's why if you see somebody that's going off and you try to correct them and they ain't trying to hear it, get the fuck away from them. Least them seducing spirits that's on them leap on your ass, and next thing you know, you're one of his disciples. The Apostle Paul spoke about that, heaping disciples unto themselves. Romans 16:17. Now I beseech you, brethren, mark them which cause division and offenses contrary to the doctrine which you have learned. So mark them. How do you mark them? You scopare them. You keep an eye on them. Did not the Apostle Paul speak about Alexander the coppersmith? He said, of whom thou beware also. You have to keep an eye on them, scope them out. And then it says what? And avoid them. Don't come into their company. Don't try to, associate with them. Don't try to break bread with them. Why? Because them same seducing spirits that's on them can leap on your ass. For they that are such serve not our Lord Yahawashi. They're not serving the Lord. They keep saying Christ and Jesus and, and all this. They're not calling on the name of Yahawah and Yahawashi, and they know the names. That's what's crazy about it. That's why Yahawashi said, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven. It says, but their own belly. So they don't serve the Lord. They serve their own belly, which means their own mind. And by good words and fair speeches deceive the hearts of the simple, because these individuals, the majority of the congregation of the nation of Israel, are not of a sound mind to be able to do the research. They're mostly followers. This is what the scriptures speak about, the great cloud of witnesses. They're not sound enough. These demons are acting up. They're not sound enough to be able to formulate a mind to be able to research the things that this individual is doing. They're just sheep. Sheep just follow. They don't question. You see? So they deceive the hearts of the simple by these fair speeches, these good words and fair speeches. And because you see the polished, the polished presentation, the fancy garments and all this stuff, they're coming to a Passover on a horse with white women holding, guiding them. They get amazed by that. And I'm sure that he's trying to think of the next thing that he can do to keep the gimmick going. Because that's one thing about gimmicks. You got to find the next gimmick. And that gimmick, the next gimmick you find to bring out has to top the one prior to that. So we're going to see what this new gimmick is going to be. There's going to have to be some far out shit. Maybe he'll come in on a hang glider next time. Maybe he'll come in on a rocket ship, SpaceX, or whatever the case may be. So going back to 2 Timothy 3:6 now. For of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sins. And this is why a lot of these women out there, they used to follow Great Millstone, a lot of women. And then, the Spirit had us to be hard on the women. And what happens? A majority of them are not around anymore. But you have a lot of women that go to some of these other groups because they cater to those women. It says, led away with divers lusts, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. That's these women, but it also applies to these men. They're always learning, but they're able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Because if you were able to come to the knowledge of the truth, you should have the mind skill to be able to study, to find out if these things which these individuals are saying are so. Like the Bereans, like it says in 1 John 4:1, try the spirit where they are of the Most High. As Jannes and Jambres withstood Moses, so do these also resist the truth. Now, Jannes and Jambres were two of the top magi's of Pharaoh, and they resisted the truth as they did to Moses. Then it says men of corrupt minds, because they are not men of sound minds. They are corrupt minds, changing stuff. And the shit that they're doing progressively gets worse and worse, but it progressively gets more and more ridiculous, more and more bugged out, to where you might as well just go back and join the Baptist church, because they teach the hell doctrine. It says men of corrupt minds reprobate concerning the faith. And the word reprobate means to be void of judgment concerning the faith. This faith that was delivered to us, to all of us, they become reprobate in that. It says, but they shall proceed no further, right? Because the Lord is going to put a stop to all of this. And what's going to put a stop to all of this? The time of Jacob's trouble, the introduction of the MOTB, which is the micro C-hip, the digital system that's being put in place before the world's eyes. Then they're going to be like, oh shit, wait a minute. And that's why these individuals are doing a lot of scrambling. Like back in the days, when you would before you would start breakdancing, you do your scrambles, you're jumping around and kind of just the warm up for it, and then you start going into your thing where there's a windmill or a handstand or whatever the hell it was you were doing. That's what they're doing, a lot of scrambling, because they have to paint the picture correctly. So to say, well, we were always talking about the digital system, moron. Can't you see? Go back and watch the videos. This video we did, and we did that video, and then we talked about the CBDC, and we talked about the digital currencies and the way that things are going. And don't be surprised if they spin in there that we've always been saying that the micro C-hip was a part of the MOTB, or it was the MOTB, but it just wasn't timed yet because nothing was happening. Don't be surprised. Do not be surprised you hear these individuals once this whole system is it is in their face now, but once this thing, the reality smacks them in the face, don't be surprised if they jump up and start teaching that the micro C hip is the MOTB. Don't be surprised. Because I was wondering how they were going to spin it, but I already see how they're spinning that web. You know? And remember, you have those slick oil can Harry prophets out there that are very smooth with their tongue. They're silver-tongued devils. And they're able to put their words together to mesmerize people before you even know what the hell's going on. You're already stung. You're already stung before you even understand that you've been stung. They're just that good, but they're not good enough, mother. And it says, but they shall proceed no further, for their folly shall be manifest unto all men, as theirs also was. Yeah, because the Lord said he's going to mark them. He's going to punish them as wicked men in his open sight of others, or something along those lines. But thou hast fully known my doctrine, manner of life, purpose, faith, long-suffering, charity, patience, persecutions, afflictions, which came unto me at Antioch, at Iconium, at Lystra. What persecutions I endured, but out of them all, the Lord delivered me. Right? Yea, and all that will live godly in Yahawashi shall suffer persecution. So we are in good hands. We're suffering persecution, whether it be physically or mentally. And then the abuse of the false accusations coming out, the false witnesses, the tale bearing, all that, that's all right. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. It says, but evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. Just like we read about, the old garment being a new piece of cloth being put on that, and it makes the rent worse. And these guys are waxing worse and worse. What's happening now is that a lot of these individuals that were new bottles back in the days have become old bottles, and those old bottles, the stitching is coming apart, and the truth is leaking out of them. The truth is leaking out of these individuals. This is why they're teaching, that the hell thing and the new moon is a full moon and many other madness that John the Baptist fell out the truth. All this madness they're teaching because the stitching in that old wine bottle is coming apart. And all of that good knowledge is leaking out. And all they left with is that bad hooch. It says, but then the Apostle Paul goes on to say, but continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and has been assured of. In other words, don't worry about what these individuals are doing. Keep an eye on them, but you continue in the things which you have learned and has been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them. Because indirectly, you're learning it from the men that taught you, but indirectly, you learn it from Yahawashi, which really is directly through the vessels that the Lord provided to bring out the truth. It says, and that from a child that has known the holy scriptures, which are able to make thee wise unto salvation through faith, which is in Yahawashi. And that's the reason why you have to keep the knowledge sound, because it's able to save our souls. Then it says, all scripture is given by inspiration of the Most High. So everything that we do is all inspired by Yahawashi, and is profitable for what? For doctrine, for reproof, which is correction. And for correction, same thing. Reproof can be harsh. Correction for instruction in righteousness. But the time is going to come where a lot of these individuals are not going to be able to follow instructions. That the man of the Most High may be perfect, truly furnished unto all good works. Right, and that way, this Lord can, will allow that man to be able to pick through the knowledge and be able to pick the right fruits, to teach the right thing, the right doctrine, to keep everything sound. So with that, this has been worse and worse. Lord's will, you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.